We had, I think, 12 coaches fired before October this year. That's never happened in the history of college football. It's kind of put us in this really uncomfortable situation where we're dealing with a lot of difficult issues, and I think not creating necessarily the best environment for the student athlete, which really should be at the forefront of what we do. And he said, "Yeah, to be honest with you, the place is a mess, and we didn't tell you how bad it was because we didn't think you'd take the job." To work in an environment where you can integrate your faith into your work is incredibly powerful and impactful. How can he go through a university process and be found not responsible, then he goes to court and he's found responsible?
Guilty, right, yeah.
That's one of the challenges when you're in a public position, Rich, is that if something does go wrong, if something does happen, not only do you have to deal with it, your family has to deal with it. I saw it as an opportunity to give him a second chance and give him an opportunity to build a program, and he came in and did an incredible job for us. Our fans have become a little bit spoiled because all of a sudden when you do go to a Fiesta Bowl, when you go to you win an NCAA softball regional, when your men's basketball team and women's basketball team both go to the NCAA tournament the same year, it creates very high expectations.
Welcome to another edition of No Holds Barred. I'm Rich Roth, and my guest today, Vice President and Director of Athletics at Liberty University, Ian McCaw. Hi, Ian.
Rich, great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity today.
I appreciate you coming in. We've talked a number of times in the past on my old show, and this is a little different deal, and I'm excited to kind of get your thoughts on a lot of different things.
Yeah, well, eager to have a conversation.
Let's do it. Interestingly enough, you are not from America. You're a Canadian.
Yeah.
And I understand played hockey. All Canadians do, right? All good Canadians?
They do. They give you ice skates before shoes up there. So I did. I started off playing hockey. It was some of my earliest memories, I think about 5 years old, and just really enjoyed all sports growing up. Played soccer, baseball, hockey were probably the three I did the most. And
Is football, I know there's Canadian football up there, but has American-style football kind of caught on? Is it a big deal, or is it hockey and soccer?
In terms of the leagues, you play Canadian football, so it's 3 downs, but certainly there's tremendous following in Canada for the National Football League. Of course, it's popular worldwide now, and so I would say most Canadians follow the NFL more than they would the Canadian Football League.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting, because obviously in your role as an athletic director, football drives the ship. Right, it's the biggest revenue earner, and it kind of helps in a lot of cases underwrite all the other sports. It does. So, not growing up in America, I was wondering, was that much of a change for you, or you grew up following regular American football as well?
I did. I grew up following college football and NFL football as long as I can remember, and I was a Packers fan for the NFL. Followed all the American colleges as well, and so I've always had great appreciation for particularly college football, and then didn't expect at that time of my life that it would eventually become part of my career. But after I came to the States, had a chance to kind of move into athletic administration, and obviously it doesn't take you very long once you do that to realize that football is, as you said, the economic engine for an athletic program, as well as the brand builder of the university.
I saw an interview with you where you talked about having a passion for sports and a passion for business. And man, these two things have just kind of collided and kind of turned into a perfect storm, because that's what you do as an athletic director. It's, the sports, yes, but it's really the business that makes it run. Yeah,
it really is. So there's one sport management program in all of Canada. And my mother actually found it and brought it to my attention. So I applied and went to college at Laurentian University, a small school in Northern Ontario, and went through a sport management program, and came towards the end of that and talked to the director of the program. And he said, there's a graduate program in the States that you might be interested in. And they had a partnership with UMass, where I went to grad school, and gave me an opportunity to come to the States, which is obviously very important on many fronts, and also advance my education and get some experience as I did that.
Yeah, I was going to ask why you came to the States, but it was to pursue that graduate program, huh?
It really wasn't, and there just weren't great career opportunities in Canada, and so much more in the States. Obviously, all the college opportunities and professional sports, and so that was obviously just a huge boon for me personally, and So that program at UMass really opened up a lot of doors. I worked in the athletic department doing media relations, and completed my graduate program in a little over a year. Did an internship in the National Hockey League for a little while, and that was all three of those things were amazing experiences for me.
If you were to give a younger person out there some advice who wanted to, follow maybe a similar career path. Hey, I want to be an athletics director. I want to be in charge of an athletic program.
Yeah.
And I know you did a bunch of different things. You talked about media relations. So you saw a bunch of different parts of the business as you kind of progressed through.
Yeah. I often have that opportunity at Liberty. We have a sport management program. So I often have students that come by and say, hey, I'd like to do your job, 10 years from now, or maybe sooner, but I usually tell them, obviously, get your degree in a relatable field. Could be sport management, could be business, marketing, something in that area. And so that's kind of step one. Step two is get some experience. So volunteer in the athletic department, volunteer at another local school, but get some practical experience. And then third, try to build a network. So you've got some people that can help you as you try to break in and get a full-time job at some point. So that's really the formula. And the people who sit in my chair, Rich, come from a lot of different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Some come the way I described, more of a traditional background, kind of business, sport management degree. Some are attorneys, and some come from the private sector. And so there's no one pathway to the athletic director chair, but generally some kind of a business background. Because really, in a lot of ways, we run kind of a medium-sized business. We have, healthy budgets. We have, in our case, about 200 employees, and then 500 student athletes to work with as well. And much of what you do is raise money and generate ticket revenue and market your program and build your brand. And so that type of background really lends itself well to these jobs.
Funny that you mentioned raise money first.
Yes.
That's huge, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Especially in this day and age. And, this is something that I definitely want to get into in a little bit. NIL, the transfer portal, the ever-changing face of college athletics. Yeah. And, just real quickly before we dive into it a little bit more later on, it kind of feels like the Wild West. And I can only imagine what it's like sitting in your chair trying to figure all this stuff out. Coaches as well, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, now you're re-recruiting your own kids just to keep them in the program. I mean, it seems totally different. And we've seen a lot of, and I'll just say coaches, because that's maybe a little bit what we see in the news more, but we're seeing a lot of coaches who are very, very successful retiring and getting out before you would think that they would normally do so, just because everything's so different.
Yeah. Yes. This is my 28th year as Division I athletic director, Rich, and worked about another 11 years before that in athletic administration. And I think I've lived through now 3 eras. The first era was when college athletics were really tied to the academic mission, the academy, and people saw it really as an extension of the academy. That obviously you want to get you're coming to university to get an education, but if you have the opportunity to play sports, that's something that helps you, learn teamwork and character attributes that come from sport. And that was really where it was early in my career. And then we got into kind of the second era, and I'm calling that the entertainment era, where there was really an infusion of television money. And all of a sudden the stakes became much higher, the pressure rose, and you saw a lot more coaches. Hey, if you're not winning after 3 or 4 or 5 years, you get a chance to build your program. But if you haven't turned it around by then, you're getting let go, and we're bringing somebody else because it's such a big part of the brand of the university. And now in the last couple of years, we've entered the new era of college athletics, as you described, name, image, and likeness. And you're seeing some just extraordinary pressure being put on, largely because I think donors are making large financial investments in programs. And when they do that, they want to have a lot to say about who the coach is and how the program's going. And if you have a group of donors that are making 7-figure commitments to build NIL and build the resource base for the program, and they don't think things are going well, they're gonna want a change made. And so you're seeing coaches getting, we had, I think, 12 coaches fired before October this year. That's never happened in the history of college football. And people are just, there's no patience, there's no ability to, let me tell you my 4 or 5 year plan to build a program. No, you better be competitive in year 1 or year 2. We might give you year 2 if you're not competitive in year 1, but the pressure and the stakes are just so incredibly high, and then you have the transactional nature that comes with NIL and players jumping from school to school. It's just a different environment, and as you mentioned, some coaches can adapt to it, some can, and you have seen a lot of great coaches. One of the best, Jay Wright, men's basketball, Villanova, won 3 national championships. Retires at the age of 60, and everyone's, why is Jay Wright retiring? He's one of the best coaches in the country, and he's just, I don't really want to deal with this.
And enough's enough.
Yeah.
On the coaches being fired mid-season, how big of a part of it has to do with the calendar? Because of they move the recruiting dates, right? And they move signing day, and used to be in the first Wednesday in February, and now there's the early signing period, which is just after the regular season ends, but before bowl games. And teams want to get, or schools want to get coaches in place. And we see what's going on now with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. And is there a deadline? Is the calendar wrong for what we're dealing with now, that we're making these decisions in season just to make sure we're prepared for the recruiting and the portal and all that?
Well, the calendar was definitely wrong last year, because last year all these things were happening, signing and the portal, and all of it was in December. And that's what's, I think, started this concept of, hey, let's fire a coach in October so we're ready in December to have somebody we can introduce. This year, the portal's been moved to January, so it's taken a little bit of pressure off that. But at the same time, I think the concept kind of carried over from last year. And so these schools are thinking, well, okay, we need to fire a coach early so we can be first to market. So if Lane Kiffin, as you said, is the hottest commodity out there, we want to make sure we can make our pitch to him and get him before the season ends, so we can be kind of first to make the big hire. Again, I think it's really unhealthy. It's not good for the student athletes. It's not good for the programs. And hopefully, once this January portal, people have gone through this one cycle, they'll realize that making a firing decision at the beginning of October is really not a good move.
And the position it puts, look at Ole Miss, right? Right now, they're in the mix to play in the in the playoffs, and they're sitting there wondering, is our coach even going to be here? And it's surreal, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And they're having a dream season, but that dream can become a nightmare pretty quickly if the coach announces that he's taking another job. So, all these things are not particularly healthy. And so how did we get here? Well, it was a combination of probably not great leadership at the NCAA level. I think pretty much everyone who's been in this business for 15, 20 years would say that the NCAA didn't adapt quickly enough. So we didn't have great leadership there. We've had some unfortunate court decisions that I think have created additional layer of problems for us as well. And those two are probably interrelated somewhat. And it's kind of put us in this really uncomfortable situation where we're dealing with a lot of difficult issues, and I think not creating necessarily the best environment for the student athlete, which really should be at the forefront of what we do.
Yeah, I want to circle back to this in a little bit and take a little bit of a deeper dive into how it affects Liberty and the job that you've got. But before we do that, you talked about your extensive tenure as an athletic administration, as athletic director. First athletic director gig as the main guy was Northeastern, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And then you wound up going back to your alma mater at UMass for 1 year.
Yeah, but almost 2.
Almost 2.
Yeah.
Tell me about those first 2 experiences, because I think I saw where you said that maybe you weren't quite ready for the Northeastern job, but who's ever ready, right, when they first get that great opportunity? You do have to learn on the job a little bit, right?
No doubt. I don't think anyone's ever ready. When you take a big step up in leadership, I don't think you're ever totally prepared. I was really fortunate in that I worked for a gentleman named Kevin White, and he was the athletic director at the University of Maine, my first full-time job, and then he brought me to Tulane with him, so I worked for him for about 10 years. And he's a legend in college athletics. He eventually became the athletic director at Arizona State. Then he was at Notre Dame for about 10 years, and then Duke for another 10 years, and he recently retired. So I had a fantastic mentor that really did prepare me and expose me to a lot of things. But I was 34 years old when I accepted the position at Northeastern, and it was a very challenging job. A lot of if you listed every problem you could have in an athletic department, it had most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. And so stepping into that, I did feel a bit overwhelmed, but I did have a great mentor, and I also had people that I could rely on, both on my staff as well as others I can call around the country and say, hey, have you ever dealt with this situation before?
What were some of them? What were some of those issues?
Yeah, it was, we had legal issues, we had personnel issues, we had some performance issues, we had lack of resources, a lot of facilities that needed attention. And so you kind of go down the list of things, and again, just about all the things that need to be addressed. And as I sat there that first week, you'll go through your meeting with all your coaches and your senior staff and kind of meet some of the key people on campus. I kept a ledger of kind of all the issues that we needed to fix, and just kept going page after page after page. But at the same time, Rich, I wouldn't change that for a minute, because it was such a great learning laboratory for me. I got so much out of those 5 years in terms of personal growth, professional growth. And we had a great president. We had people that really wanted to build a good program. But I remember at the end of that first week, as I was listing all the problems down, the president's name was Richard Freeland, gave me a call. I think he was just doing a welfare check, probably.
Just checking in.
Is he still? I wonder if he's still here. And he said, "How's it going, Ian?" And I said, "Well, good first week. I think I've identified what the issues are, and there are a lot of them." And he said, "Yeah, to be honest with you, the place is a mess, and we didn't tell you how bad it was because we didn't think you'd take the job." So I appreciated his candor after the fact, but anyway, we were able to do some really good things, and again, great experience in terms of learning and growing.
And you talked about not wanting to trade that for anything. Kind of the mentality of that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Absolutely. I mean, you kind of fight through all that, and tremendous learning experience, I bet.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. and again, I reflect back fondly on that time, and well, again, really difficult challenges. You're right. Those are what sharpen you as a leader, and as iron sharpens iron. It was definitely something that made me a lot better, and really prepared me for the next job, and also the remainder of my career.
So the next job was you get to go back to your alma mater, or one of them, at UMass. Western Massachusetts, an interesting place. I was actually just up there last weekend. My grandparents, my mom grew up on a farm right across the river from UMass.
Really? Okay.
So in a little town called Whately. And,
I know exactly where that is.
It's beautiful area.
Yes. Yeah.
You get a chance to go back to your alma mater.
Yeah.
You said it was not quite 2 years that you were there before Baylor came calling, and you didn't expect that, right? I mean, it was one of those things where you go back to your alma mater, you're like, man, I'm here, I'm going to.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And really, I was very happy at Northeastern, but when UMass opened, obviously I had familiarity there, knew a lot of people, and that was one that made sense. And you're right, we thought we were going to be there a long time. It was fairly close to both my family, my wife's family. We enjoyed Western Mass. We, as a matter of fact, we built a house, and we were 3 weeks away from moving into that house when Baylor called. But it was also, again, good learning experience, being at a state flagship university, and some good programs. We were in the afterglow of the men's basketball Final Four, and
Coach Cal,
and he had left at that point, but certainly it was a much higher profile job, and a great situation. Probably could have stayed there a long time, but we did get the unexpected call from Baylor in the fall of 2003.
And that presented a whole new set of challenges, right? Because you're going to, a school in a bigger conference that's more high profile. Although, like you said, Coach Cal really did a number on increasing the exposure and, name recognition of UMass. But you go to Baylor, and how big of a mess was it there when you got there?
Yeah, it was challenging. Although, a couple of the assets were obviously, you're in the Big 12, so you've got great conference affiliation. So that was really a positive. And they had really good academics in order. So the student athletes, good quality students, and And the third great attribute is you're located right in the middle of Texas, very talent-rich area. So I certainly saw those as being great assets. The downside at the time, we're coming off a men's basketball scandal, so you had a compliance issue, a credibility issue, a donor issue. Facilities were not where they needed to be, and the teams weren't winning. So those were pretty healthy set of challenges.
Sounds like Northeastern.
A little bit, and it really, and again, that's why Northeastern really helped and equipped me for this opportunity. We had the smallest budget in the Big 12, and the smallest fan base at the time as well. So a lot of again opportunity to grow and to do some good things, and we're very fortunate. Had some really good people in place, though, and I was really thankful for that. I brought a couple in, but there's some good people already in place, and we just kind of took that one day at a time and built that. And we had some really good things happen early on in 2004. First full year, our men's tennis team won a national championship. First national championship in the 170-year history of the university. So that allows us to really rally some people and create some enthusiasm. And then the next year in 2005, the women's basketball team won a national championship, very unexpected, under Kim Mulkey, who's now the LSU head coach. And so those two things, I think, bought us credibility and created some energy and enthusiasm, allowed us to get donors and the fan base engaged. And, we had to do some rebuilding in both football and men's basketball.
The comparison of that to Northeastern, and it sounds like similar challenges, but Northeastern really much more known for its academics than it is athletics. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking Baylor Big 12 football, there you got to win, but the opportunity, if you do, becomes phenomenal. Was there more? Did you feel a lot more pressure going to that job than, say, a Northeastern, where it's like, yeah, we have athletics and that's great. And it was kind of like what you were describing earlier, a part of the college experience rather than the end all be all, which is what it could be at big time schools.
Yeah. Very similar in that the challenges were comparable, but much larger scale, much bigger platform. And so if I made a couple mistakes at Northeastern, wouldn't be as magnified. You make those mistakes at Baylor and it's really a big issue. So, It did, again, great opportunity, again, to build really from scratch a football program that we had 15 straight losing seasons, hadn't gone to a bowl game in 15 years, and were able to bring a really good coach and go to bowl games, actually win Big 12 championships, and have a team that one year was ranked as high as 5th in the country. So incredible turnaround in the football program, and part of that was building a brand new football stadium on the Brazos River, and $400 million project, and it was an incredible experience to go through. Very rarely do you get to build a football stadium from scratch, and that was really a fun experience. And then the men's basketball program, when we got there, we had 4 players on the roster following the scandal. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to field a team, and Scott Drew and I were hired came at the same time, and he built that program into a regular perennial NCAA team. We went to a couple of Elite Eights, and then, of course, he won a national championship in 2021. So to see the transformation, both football and men's basketball, women's basketball went on to win a couple more national championships, won some national championships in other sports, and really had, I think, kind of in that era, 2012 to 2015, one of the top athletic programs in the entire country.
And Baylor also a religious school.
Mm-hmm.
How important is that to you? Because you go from Baylor to Liberty, obviously, there's a common denominator there, right? I mean, is that something that's super important to you as a person?
It is. And quite honestly, that was the attraction to go to Baylor at the time as a Christian, as somebody who's really an evangelical Christian, to work in an environment where you can integrate your faith into your work is incredibly powerful and impactful. And obviously, I'd previously worked at some secular schools where faith was not encouraged or central to the mission of the school. But working at Baylor and then now Liberty, and being able to integrate faith into our athletic program is just an incredible blessing, and something that I just very grateful for.
I've got to imagine that that's incredibly, maybe not incredibly difficult, but the balance of trying to do things the right way, but also trying to win.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it seems like sometimes that might be, those concepts might be diametrically opposed because, it's not always the best people who are the best athletes. And, as you climb up, right, you go from Northeastern to UMass to Baylor, it's winning becomes more and more important to the fan base, to the money, to all that. How do you balance that?
Yeah, it's certainly a big topic in college athletics. There are a lot of people that have kind of tried to cut corners, and not necessarily just from a faith standpoint, but just in terms of rules and eligibility and manipulating transcripts and things. We read about a lot of situations where schools have really kind of compromised their integrity, in the interest of trying to win games. And so I think it's really important to maintain a program of integrity, and that's kind of a baseline program that's compliant with NCAA rules. And no one's perfect. You're going to have student athletes that are 18 years old or 19 years old or 20 years old that are going to make mistakes. That's I think we've all been there, and so you need to be able to extend some grace when it's appropriate, but you need to have an overall culture of integrity within the program, and we've really tried hard to do that both at Baylor as well as at Liberty.
Knowing how important that is to you, and obviously one of the things that led to you coming to Liberty was the scandal that happened at Baylor. Without going into all the details and talk about that for a second. And you got caught up in that. Coach Briles, I think, has never really gotten a great coaching opportunity since all that happened. If it's true what happened, absolutely horrible. And I guess you kind of take the fall because you were the top guy and that was your athletic program. Is that kind of how things...
Yeah, so Baylor had a kind of long-standing issue of mishandling sexual assault reports, and it primarily resided in the police department, and there wasn't a Title IX office at the time. It was Judicial Affairs, and so there were problems throughout the campus, but there were two problems that involved football players, and so of course, what does the media pay attention to? They focus on the two football cases, as opposed to, honestly, hundreds of cases across campus. And so as a result of that, kind of created a firestorm. And the one case that was really pivotal to everything was a football student athlete went through the university process and was found not responsible. And then that he was prosecuted and found guilty in the courtroom. And so people couldn't reconcile. Now, how can he go through a university process and be found not responsible? Then he goes to court and he's found responsible.
Guilty, right, yeah.
And so people thought there's some kind of cover-up going on at the university and what's happening. And so the university was under incredible pressure. And I think the board decided that the pressure was so intense, they didn't want the media to uncover the much broader problem. So we're going to hang it all on football, and we're going to fire Coach Briles, which they did. And the company line they wanted is that this is a football problem. And unfortunately, I knew enough to know that wasn't the case. And I couldn't support the decision and the way they handled Coach Briles. So I decided I needed to pursue other opportunities. So I stepped away at that point.
So from what I'm hearing you say, the fallout and what's happened to Coach Briles basically being blacklisted from football in America, because I remember there were a couple of opportunities. Maybe Mississippi State was one where he accepted was it an offensive coordinator position, and then he had to resign a couple days later because they're like, no way. So I mean, was that all put on him unfairly, in your opinion, or
it was? And again, if the standard you want to hold him to is that if you have anybody under your any student under your direction engage in misconduct, we're going to fire you for that. Well, if you do the same thing for the dean of the business school and the dean of arts and sciences and the dean of aeronautics, you're not going to have anybody left, working there. So I think they held him to an unreasonable standard. And again, I think quite honestly, they scapegoated him. That was who they wanted to pin everything on. And understandably, because again, if the larger problem would have been exposed, it would have been devastating the school's enrollment, and the fallout would have been much greater. So, they made a decision I personally didn't think was ethical, but I understand why they made it. But I could not be a part of that, so that's why
I guess part of it too is when we talk about all the money and the exposure, that's involved with big time college athletics. That's what's getting noticed rather than the math teacher or the the HR person or whatever else it is inside the college. So they a decision they really had to make then, huh?
Yeah, I mean that was the judgment of the board at that point in time, and so again, I understand why they did. I just didn't agree with it. And then those are some of the things you talk about a lot, Rich. In your career is, sometimes you have to make a stand for what is right. I love Baylor, love Waco. Our family was very happy. Program was thriving. A lot of great things. I wasn't forced to resign. That was a decision I made on my own. And but sometimes you just have to stand up and say, you know what, this is going to be really difficult for my family. It's going to be difficult for me, but you have to do what's right. I just felt like that was the right thing to do at that time.
So you take a consulting job, and it wasn't long before Liberty came knocking.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that story, because it was, if memory serves, it was someone at Baylor who kind of put you in touch with Liberty.
Yeah. So I was working, as you mentioned, as a consultant, working with Bodine and Associates, and working with college athletic programs. So it was really enjoyable. I worked with an SEC program, a couple schools in the American, and really was enjoying that because it kept my hand in athletics, but it wasn't quite this little different variety than being an athletic director. So that was going well. I did that, I guess, for about 6 months, and then received a call from President Falwell at Liberty, and he had been given my name by a gentleman named Grant Taft. Grant was a longtime head football coach at Baylor, and then was the executive director of the American Football Coaches Association. So very wonderful man, and we had a great relationship. And he thought, President Falwell said, I'm looking for an athletic director. Do you have anybody you'd recommend? He said, I've got one name for you. And he gave him my name, and they did their due diligence and called me and asked me if I'd consider coming to Lynchburg to lead the program at Liberty. They had aspirations to build the athletic program and build the football program, move up to FBS, and came in and visited and fell in love with both the place and the people, and began in November of 2016.
Tell me about the media backlash, and maybe fan backlash, maybe just backlash in general, right? Because you're down there at Baylor. You talked about how incredibly you'd built that program. You're bringing national championships to a school that never had them, a ton of conference championships, high profile, raising money, building fan bases. And now all of a sudden, your name, Coach Bryle's name, everything splashed all over the news. It wasn't long before you're coming to Liberty. Obviously, we know Liberty can be a very polarizing place nationally as well. With all the Falwells, right? Starting with Jerry Sr. and but I even remember when, you took the job here, and, it's on SportsCenter and it's on all over the place. Can you believe Liberty, this Christian school, is bringing in a guy who oversaw a program, and they're talking about gang rapes and all kinds of different things, and you and your family are dealing with this. What was that like?
Yeah, I think one of the things when you're in a role of leadership, and particularly in college athletics, very visible. And as you mentioned, and I think after, at that point, probably 20 years is in the AD chair, you do develop a little bit of thick skin. And so I've learned not to worry about, what social media says or what people say. I know who I am, and the people who know me know who I am. And I think that was part of what really reassured Liberty, was their leadership reached out to people at Baylor who knew me, and they obviously spoke on my behalf. And about both personal and professional, and from a faith standpoint, I think that's really what won Liberty over. And then as far as dealing with the backlash, one of the things I think that we see in today's world is a story's hot for about 24, maybe 48 hours, and then they're on to the next thing. And so there was a couple uncomfortable days in there, but after that, and once I had a chance to get to know people and meet people. It's been smooth sailing ever since.
What about for your family? I mean, them seeing your name splashed all over TV and the newspapers, and not in a very nice way, obviously. How hard was that for them to deal with?
Yeah, I've got a great wife and 4 amazing kids, and I think it was probably hardest on our son. He was at Baylor at the time, and sophomore, and so he saw these things were being said about his dad, and he knows his dad obviously well, and I think that was hurtful for him. But at the same time, so he actually transferred to Liberty. So he did 2 years at Baylor and 2 years at Liberty. So I think it's probably hardest on him. But yeah, those are difficult things. And, that's one of the challenges, when you're in a public position, Rich, is that if something does go wrong, if something does happen, not only do you have to deal with it, your family has to deal with it. And, so that's really difficult. I feel really badly for the athletic director of Baylor right now. He's going through a situation where he was just went on leave, and he's dealing with kind of some controversy right now. And I know he's got a wife and three daughters, and I'm sure he's going through a very difficult time, as are they right now.
Did that wound kind of get reopened when you took the job at Liberty, and all of a sudden, because again, it happens at Baylor, things quiet down, you're a consultant, and then 6 months later or something like that, now all of a sudden you're coming back to Liberty, and again, with the Falwells and with Liberty, it's like these two worlds are colliding, right? Holy cow, what are we going to do? Did it kind of reopen some of that, or? Yeah,
I would say it did, certainly, but again, I think it was fairly short-lived, and as you mentioned, Liberty has dealt with controversy in the past, and seems to just kind of roll through it in a very kind of seamless fashion. So, but you're right. There was definitely an immediate backlash, but again, I think it subsided really quickly. And as I got to know people and people got to know me, again, I think trust was built very, very quickly.
What was the biggest, if there was one, maybe there were a couple, and I think you touched on some, but what was the biggest, what was the greatest appeal for you to come to Liberty? Was it the opportunity to get back into, athletics and again, kind of along the lines of what I was touching on before, the balance between a winning program and doing things the right way. People, I think, look at Liberty, and maybe it's a fair, point, or maybe it's not, but that Liberty now has become so focused on winning. They bring you in with the controversy surrounding you, and not long after that, in comes Coach Freeze. And it's like, wait, is winning more important than doing things the right way? And I think there's kind of that question around Lynchburg when it, as it pertains to Liberty.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a funny story. So when Baylor was just really humming about 2013 or so, Todd Patulski, who's was my deputy AD at Baylor and now is on our staff here at Liberty. He came in my office one day and he said, "What do you think about leaving Baylor and taking on another challenge somewhere else and kind of building a program up similar to what we've done here?" I thought, "Todd, are you crazy? I mean, we're going the Elite Eight. We got a Big 12 champion football team. Women's basketball's win national championships. Softball's going the World Series.
Why do you want to leave
going World Series. I mean, why would we? National championships all over the place. Big 12 championships galore. Honestly, at that point, one of the hottest athletic programs in the entire country. Well, why would we want to do that?" And he said, "I just think we need a new challenge. We've kind of done it here. We need to do that again somewhere else." So I reflect on that conversation many times. I thought, man, that just, I can't imagine doing that, but maybe he's right. I don't know. And so that was really what I found appealing. What I get the most gratification of is building. I like to build things. I like to build programs. I like to build facilities. I just like to leave things better than they were. And so that was the biggest pull or draw to come to Liberty, is that I saw a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity to really build a program up. But the second part of your question, the tension of kind of, what's the pressure to win? Let's face it, in college athletics, I mean, you hear all the pro coaches say it all the time. you play to win the game, right? You
Mm-hmm.
play. I mean, the idea is to win the game, and so you've got to have competitive athletic programs. That's what they're made for. As you mentioned, Coach Freeze, that was an opportunity that I saw somebody who obviously had made a mistake, very remorseful, very repentant, had paid his dues, been out of the game for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody who genuinely had a faith, was genuinely very aligned with Baylor's mission, and I saw it as an opportunity to give him a second chance and give him an opportunity to build a program, and he came in and did an incredible job for us, and so it ended up. It was great for him. It was great for his family, and it was great for Liberty.
Did you have the feeling that it was going to be a long-term thing, or that he was kind of using Liberty as maybe a stepping stone to get his foot back in the door when the opportunity came to get back to big-time football, which, obviously he jumped out at Auburn, and we'll talk about that in a second. But, I mean, did you feel like it was a long-term thing, or this was kind of something that he was, wow, this is my chance to get back in?
Yeah, I wasn't sure, to be honest with you. I had my short list ready every year though,
Right.
because I knew he was a great coach. You look at what he did at Ole Miss. He's there was a time when he was arguably one of the top 5 to 10 coaches in the country in terms of how he was valued. So I knew that there certainly was potential we could lose him, and but the longer he stayed, the more he enjoyed Lynchburg. He got really plugged in, as you probably hear the story. He's very plugged in at Boonesboro Country Club. A lot of great friends there. Enjoyed a very good lifestyle that he probably couldn't replicate in a higher pressure job where, if you wanted to play golf on a Thursday afternoon before a Saturday football game, you could probably do that in Lynchburg. If you tried to do that at Auburn, I think you'd have a lot of problems.
Yeah, I think he, I wound up seeing some things, and I guess Coach Kiffin kind of was trolling him a little bit about some of that stuff too.
Yeah, so he had a great lifestyle here, loved it, and again, it was faced with, I think, a very difficult kind of family career decision. You have a chance to go back to the SEC, compete at the highest level. Did you do that, knowing all the pressure and all the stakes and adjustment of lifestyle that comes with that, or do you stay at Liberty and continue to, build a program and move us forward? So ultimately, went to Auburn, we wished him well, thanked him for all that he did, and that opened the door to us hiring Coach Chadwell.
You talked about the opportunity when you came to Liberty to really build something and what they had in. And I'm sure you meant this when you said that there were plenty of resources, but we know Liberty's got a ton of money relative to other schools that are comparable, similar conference, that type of thing. And that obviously is huge because when you look at the facilities that you guys have built over there, comparable to the biggest and best in the country.
Yeah.
Talk about how that all came together for you and how you see that helping you continue to build what Liberty's got moving forward.
Yeah, it was a little bit opposite of Baylor, in that Baylor had the great conference affiliation but no money when we got there, and Liberty, well-resourced program, but we were in the Big South, and so obviously had a long way to go from a conference standpoint. So really what I think the resources and facilities have allowed us to do is move up very quickly. We went from the Big South to the ASUN, then the ASUN to Conference USA, and I think we're a school that has a very high ceiling in terms of the future as well. So facilities are all really in order, and the resources are there to be successful. We think every one of our coaches is in position to compete for a conference championship every year. It doesn't mean they're going to win it every year,
of course.
But they've got the resources they need to do that. And we're seeing obviously a lot of success with that. This past year we won 13 conference championships. So I think we're really at a good place with our program, and I think we have a really bright future as well.
What was the most important thing that you wanted to accomplish in the short term? Like one of the first things you wanted to dive into when you got to Liberty?
Yeah, so wanted to make sure we had a good culture, which we did, and I think it's probably gotten a little bit better, but I think we had a really good culture. That was important. We had a lot of facility projects going on, and seeing those to fruition, and they are all complete basically at this point. And then really, again, elevating us from a conference standpoint and elevating us from a competitive standpoint, and and obviously particularly moving from FCS to FBS football, that was probably at the top of the list as well. So all of those things were important, and really grateful. I think our coaches and staff have done a tremendous job. The university leadership, President Costin, Chancellor Falwell, are incredibly supportive, and our program's moved a long way in 9 years. But there's a lot more out there for us, and eager to see how things continue to grow.
You talked before about always having a short list for all your coaches because you never know what's going to happen, right? And maybe even more so now in this day and age. Yeah. Liberty being a faith-based school, very faith-based school, yeah. And certainly there's perceptions about it out there. How much more difficult does that make your job to recruit coaches? And then on top of that, when we saw a couple of years ago the issues with Jerry Falwell Jr. Yep. and that scandal, and then the next thing sure. Liberty once again in the news, and you're probably having flashbacks like, oh boy, here we go again. Yeah. Yep. How much does that, or let's just use that that for example, how much did that impact your job and what was going on in the athletic department as far as the perception nationally?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges from years gone by did impact recruiting, and did in some cases impact us in terms of coaching searches. So that was there. I think that's all in the back in history right now. We're having no trouble in recruiting. We're having no trouble in hiring great coaches right now. As far as you talked about finding someone in a coaching search that's a Liberty mission fit that really aligns with our mission to train champions for Christ. If there are if we have a particular search and a public school would maybe be looking at 12 to 15 candidates for a particular job. Our mission filter might knock that down to one or two. And so it's a much more narrow pool. But within that pool, those people are interested in being at a faith-based school, and they're interested in our mission. And so our ability to secure a coach like that goes way, way up, because they're looking for what we have, and they're just not that many. They're maybe none, right? Quite like Liberty. So, for example, just last night we announced our new men's soccer coach. He came from Gardner-Webb, and he was very excited about our faith-based mission, and really fits the university well, and is a really good soccer coach. But we didn't have a lot of depth in that pool, and so we could get him. But it wasn't like if we were doing the same search at the University of Pittsburgh, we might have 8 or 10 coaches that we would look at, where we had, again, much narrower pool. What Liberty's accomplished athletically under your tenure, and it's hard to believe that we're coming up on 10 years, right? I mean, that's crazy. Yeah, it's 9 years this month. Yeah.
So, over 100, right? Conference championships. I mean, everything we've talked about that you guys have built, the growth of the, obviously football kind of drives the ship, and, going to the Fiesta Bowl a few years ago. I mean, just amazing stuff, but with that comes additional expectations. And, Coach Chadwell in his third year here, and he's had an incredible career leading up to here. Great get. I know everybody was excited when he came in, fit the faith-based, issue that you were talked about before. And you start off with one loss going to the Fiesta Bowl. It's tough to go up from there. Yes. Right. Yep. Last year, another good year, another bowl game. This year, a little bit of a struggle. And, my understanding that, and we know, fans will be fans, but I mean, people, oh man, maybe we need a change. I mean, it blows me away. I'm like, one bad year, like that's unbelievable. But I mean, I'm sure you hear that same stuff, right? The questions. Yeah. And we have high expectations, and, we talk a little bit internally about, our fans have become a little bit spoiled, because all of a sudden when you do go to a Fiesta Bowl, when you go to you win an NCAA softball regional, when your men's basketball team and women's basketball team both go to the NCAA tournament the same year, it creates very high expectations. That becomes kind of the bar, right? Every year, and so you're not gonna have success every year. I think particularly in this environment we're in right now, it's going to be a little more
erratic because of the NIL and transfer portal and so forth. But yeah, I have tremendous confidence in Coach Chadwell. He, if you look at his track record over the last 6 years, he's won about 75% of his games. If you're looking for someone who's won more, it's a really short list. Kirby Smart and Dabo Sweeney, who who's having not a great year either this season. But yeah, I have a lot of confidence that he's going to make the adjustments we need and get us back on track.
And this goes into what you touched on at the very beginning, kind of the three different, you didn't use the word tiers, but the three different eras of college athletics. And now with NIL, it's a major adjustment. And, you talked about coaches who are leaving because they didn't want to deal with it. And, the coaches who are able to navigate that are going to have a lot of success. And I'm wondering at a program like Liberty, you guys are kind of in the middle, right? You're not in the, the highest top tier. And what we seem to see every year, I mean, I saw someone talking, and I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was an interview I saw with Kirk Herbstreit or something where he was saying coaches aren't even really recruiting freshmen anymore. They're just going into the portal and you have to re-recruit your own guys. But at a place like Liberty, when we saw it with Caden Salter and others, it's like, man, the first opportunity they get to go to a bigger, perceived better program, and of course the money. I mean, it feels like for the athletes nowadays, it's all about the money. How do you guys negotiate the NIL portion of it?
Yeah, so I think we have an advantage in that the student athletes that we attract come to Liberty for the right reason. They want the Christian environment, they want the culture that we have, which is very, very unique. And so I think that we have a better chance of retaining our student athletes than a lot of other schools that are just it's purely transactional. We're a transformational kind of place, and so I think that gives us a big advantage from a retention standpoint. We've seen that to some extent. But again, if a student athlete has an opportunity to go somewhere and make millions or make high hundreds of thousands, that there are going to be those opportunities, and also play at the Power 4 level and get a better chance in their mind to perhaps move on to professional sports. But yeah, I think we have a really good plan, and I think we have really good people, and but there is going to be more volatility in the market just because of that. Because when you lose a Caden Salter, there's not necessarily another Caden Salter waiting in the wings to take that spot,
right.
And I think that's part of what we're dealing with right now is that. You have you have situations like that can cause some more volatility than you would otherwise. But I like our coaches, I like our plan, and I think we're going to be positioned really well to continue to thrive even in an environment that's very challenging.
How does NIL work at Liberty?
Yeah, so we provide every one of our student athletes with an NIL licensing agreement. So every student athlete, all 500 of them, have an agreement. And the amounts vary. We allocate it based on the revenue, the percentage of revenue that the sport brings in. And then we kind of calculate that. We give each program a budget. And then that coach works with our business office, and they execute NIL agreements for, let's say it's our women's basketball team, and there's 15 players on a women's basketball team. They have a budget of X dollars, and the coach and the business office figure out how we're going to allocate it based on kind of market value of the student athletes, and they sign the agreements, and we pay them throughout the year for their NIL.
How competitive are you guys as far as the amount of money that you've got or that you're able to offer players? Yep. Because, like I said, I mean that's what it feels like now. Is it feels like there's no loyalty. I've talked to lots of other sports fans that are like. Man, it's so different. We miss the loyalty. Guys just going to go for the paycheck. Playing at 3 or 4 different schools in a college career. I mean, very, very different. How do you guys stack up? Are you able to go out and get the players that you want based on the financial part of it?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned there, the player, the multi-transfer players, that's not healthy. That's not healthy. They're not getting a traditional college education, and they don't really have loyalty to a school, and they're just bouncing for maximizing income. And that, again, I don't think that's optimal. But I also understand there's some families that are in need of doing that, and that's why it occurs. But in terms of how we're positioned, we're our NIL resources are top of Conference USA, and we're among the top group of 6 schools. So we're not at the top, but I would say Memphis is probably number 1, and South Florida is probably number 2, and there's another handful in that range, but we're kind of in that upper group of 6. So we certainly have resources to be, again, very competitive in Conference USA and competitive with the top group of 6 programs in the country.
You mentioned it earlier. You came in, you were in the Big South, you made the jump to the ASUN, now Conference USA. Your goal is to be the preeminent Christian athletic program in the country. So it wouldn't seem like the road would stop at Conference USA. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. And I think everyone knows, we have infrastructure, resources, and potential to certainly continue to grow as an athletic program over time. And the one thing that we know about conference realignment is it never stops.
Right.
So there'll be more conference realignment in the future, and we're extremely happy to be in Conference USA, really enjoying the opportunity, but there will be future changes. And I think, again, Liberty would be really well positioned to continue to advance and continue to grow.
There was a lot of talk or speculation, rumors, maybe, I don't know, that you guys had the opportunity or maybe were being considered for other conferences, but because you were Liberty, they didn't want you for whatever reason, whether it being the faith-based part. I've heard other conferences didn't want you because of the amount of money that you had, and they didn't feel like, the rest of the teams would be able to compete, that you just come in and dominate. Are those two things that you really have kind of had to negotiate?
Yeah, we definitely felt that around the time because we were under consideration from the American and from the Sun Belt at the time we were ultimately joined Conference USA. That was a time of realignment, and there were options out there, and we certainly heard some signals that there was concern about our resources, and there was concern about our facilities that we would immediately be at the top of the conference in a couple of those in that category. And that was causing some nervousness among the other schools because, let's face it, presidents and athletic directors and coaches kind of look at who their competition is. And all of a sudden, if you bring in a school that's going to be at the top of the conference, that's going to make them concerned. So that was definitely an issue. The mission we didn't hear being a big issue, but I think it mostly came down to resources and facilities.
How do you feel like this whole NIL, conference realignment, transfer portal, this crazy era that we're in, how do you see it playing out? But look into your crystal ball, for just a second, because I know we have no idea. But I mean, how do you see, or I mean, is there a path? Is there a solution that you see to making this more normalized and kind of getting everything to settle down a little bit?
I think where we are right now is not going to be sustainable. I just think these schools that have thrown, this year there's a couple of Big Ten schools that have football rosters over $40 million. So that's not sustainable. That was they kind of went all in before July 1st when the House settlement kicked in, and so there really needs to be, I think, a congressional solution, ideally, to create just some better guardrails. And again, I'm not opposed to student athletes being compensated, but things I think have just gone too far too fast, really gotten out of hand, and we are kind of in this Wild West era where things can be a little bit better regulated and a little more transparency. And I think if Congress can be the solution, that's going to be the best possible outcome. I think absent that, there may be an opportunity for a court to help put us in a little bit better spot, although that they've not been friendly to college athletics recently. But we need to have a little better system than we do right now. It's just not healthy for higher education to be dealing with this type of environment.
It's a little scary to hear you say we need Congress or the court system to help because you look around at what's going on now and it doesn't seem very likely, at least in the near term.
It's true. Yeah.
When you look at Liberty, right, and obviously the goal to make it the preeminent Christian athletic program, you made tremendous strides. There's still a ways to go. what do you see as the next step for Liberty Athletics?
Yeah, it's a combination of a few things. We talked about, I remember we had a retreat about 4 or 5 years ago, and we said, what do we really need to do to take the next level? And the answers were conference affiliation. So we bumped up to COSA, and again, as we talked about, more potential there in the future. We really need to have some big moments on the national stage, and obviously the Fiesta Bowl and the softball advancing the super regional were a couple moments. Men's and women's basketball making the tournament last year. So we need to continue to have those type of moments to continue to elevate our program. And those, I think, are the things that will help kind of spur us on to the next stages of growth for athletic program.
Any particular conferences that you have your eye on?
There are, you can't really talk about it, but
you can't blame me for asking that.
No,
right?
no, I can't. Fair question. I think certainly we can be in reasonable time frame. We can be at the top of the Group of Six level. I think that's very realistic. People often ask me, "Do you think we could ever be a Power Four school?" And I think the answer is yes. But that's probably not going to happen in the next couple of years. I think we need, similar again what we've done. You take one step at a time, and I think the next step is to be kind of at the highest level in the Group of Six, and then beyond that, I do think long term, this school just has so many assets. I mean, 120,000 online students, and as you mentioned, the resources and facilities, and our brand is growing nationally at a great level. So there is long-term potential for this to be a really, really special place.
Do you see football ever being removed from sort of the NCAA and becoming its own entity? I mean, what we're seeing now with conference realignment, I mean, you just look at the ACC and it's Cal and Stanford, and they're making trips across the country. And it's like, have we lost sight of the student athlete here, the student part, right? I mean, and there's been talk about maybe it's just the SEC and the Big Ten become two super conferences, or maybe maybe the NCAA gets out of it altogether and it just becomes a football thing. And then we go back to the old conferences for the for the Olympic sport type of thing. Do you see that happening?
I don't see the super conference working, because what happened is if they create their own universe and they have to play each other every Saturday, all their teams are going 7-5, and they're all used to going, winning 10, 11 games a year. So that really created a lot of problem. I do think there is a possibility that football could be pulled out at some point. And there's a concept out there right now that you bring basically all 135 FBS programs together, have a TV contract just for them, and just have football as kind of standalone, and then the conferences would run the rest of the sports. I think that has a lot of merit. It's not going to happen anytime soon, because they're television contracts that go for another 8 or 10 years. They're going to probably prohibit that from happening short term. But I do think that's long term makes a lot of sense, and would add a lot of value to every program.
Are all the changes that we've seen, and you talked about Jay Wright and others who have left coaching because they don't want to deal with it. This is obviously very different than the environment that you jumped into. How are you as far as what we're in? Do you like this environment? Do you want to stay in it? Is it what you signed up for?
Yeah, it's not what I signed up for, not what I started in, and it's not even what I was doing mid-career. But I'm actually energized by it, because I love challenges. I love solving problems. I love adaptive leadership, and all those things kind of get pulled into what we're dealing with right now. And so crafting a plan for Liberty to be successful in the new era has been really invigorating for me and our staff, and continuing to kind of cast a vision and chart a course for where we want to take the program. Those are things that I think God's gifted me in, and I really enjoy doing. And so that's got me really as energized as any point I've ever been in my career.
What's the most important thing you need to keep doing, or you need to start doing, to really put Liberty in a position to get where you want it to go ultimately? Yeah.
So we need to do two things that are not necessarily aligned. We need to make sure we're staying on mission, and continuing to have a great culture. So that's kind of on one side of the ledger. And the other side is we need to continue to elevate our program competitively and have success. And you can do both, but it requires intentionality because you can't take your eye off one ball and focus only on the other ball. You have to keep your eyes on both balls at the same time. And that's really, I think, what we do well. And the credit to our staff and our coaches. And that's why I really feel that our best days are ahead of us.
As you kind of play things out for the rest of the year, we talked a little bit about football. You talked about the amazing run that Dot Richardson has had, coaching the softball program and the coaches that you've been able to bring in. Obviously when you're looking at an athletic program, that's kind of where things have to start, right? Richie McCaw was here. He left, went up, worked with Coach Bennett at UVA. You wound up getting him back. I mean, those three people, and I'm sure there are many other coaches, really seem to fit the mold for what you're trying to build here.
Yeah, I'm really proud of our roster of coaches. I think they're exceptional, and you're right. They came to Liberty for a reason. They came because they're attracted to our mission. Obviously, they like our facilities and they like our resources, and they know they have the potential to win. But they came for the right reasons, and I think that's why they stay for the right reasons. We don't have a lot of coaching turnover. We just had a retirement for Coach Kerry Green after 26 years.
Yep.
You don't see that very much anymore in college athletics, and Brant Tolsma retired a couple years ago, 35 years. And so you can stay and have a tremendous career at Liberty. And I think we've got a lot of coaches right now that are going to continue to kind of, spend their career or most of their career at the university. So really good roster of coaches. Again, they in turn are recruiting really good student athletes and it's putting our programs in a great position.
Have you gotten opportunities to leave?
I get calls occasionally from search firms and so forth, but I've never pursued any opportunities since I came to Liberty. I just feel this is where God wants me, and this will be my last athletic director job. Hopefully, they'll let me hang around for a while longer. I'm 63, and would love to go another 5 years or so, and see if we can move the ball a little bit further along and position this program for a bright future beyond that.
So there's no job out there where it's like, man, that's the one. And and it was interesting too. In one of the interviews that I kind of had seen about college athletics, it's like, why do coaches? And they were talking about coaches, but the same would apply for athletic directors. Yeah. You see what's happened at LSU, what's happened at Florida, and the way athletics have changed with it being about the money that these kids are getting paid. Sure. The question was, why do you want to go there and deal with that type of pressure when you could go somewhere else? And I think the conversation was about Lane Kiffin, and you're at Ole Miss and they've got plenty of resources and you can build something without having the pressure that you would have at LSU or other places. Has that part of college athletics changed? Because, the point he was making was it's no longer about the history of your program or, what you've built or who you are. It's just about how much you can pay these guys. Yeah. So why go to a place where there's that much pressure?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think one of the things you see with that, you mentioned LSU is, if you don't have good alignment and your governor and your president and your chancellor and your AD and your coach are not well aligned, it can really be a difficult job. And these jobs are hard anyway. These jobs are very, very difficult, very challenging. But being at a place like Liberty where we have great alignment with our chancellor, our president, our board, our athletic program, and we're blessed with great resources, and obviously we have an incredible mission to train champions for Christ. It's perfect alignment for me, and I'm very, very blessed to serve here.
Is there a specific accomplishment, achievement, something that you'd like to see before your tenure at Liberty ends? In 5 years or however long it is?
There are a lot. And again, I told you what really is gratifying for me is growth, development, progress. And, there are a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily think they're important to me. And our fans probably don't think are important to me, but I get a lot of gratification of things like, we've had record team graduation rates and GPAs. We just established the first athletic department mission trip to Guatemala this summer. Just kind of seeing the culture that we have within our program, how our student athletes represent the university, the amount of community service that they engage in. We just have incredible people over there. So it's those things are really, really gratifying, and those aren't numbers on a scoreboard, but those are things that really make you feel good about what you're doing and who you're working with, and what the program's all about.
As far as stuff that does relate to the scoreboard, is it, getting into a certain conference, winning a certain, with football going to the Fiesta Bowl, that was amazing. And that would be one where I think you could certainly hang your hat on and said, I took Liberty to a New Year's Day bowl game. And that's amazing in and of itself, but that you're not done.
Yeah, no, we want to continue to have milestones like that. And those are things that really inspire people when you have something like a Fiesta Bowl trip, or again, softball, super regional, NCAA tournament, and basketball. Those are great markers and great milestones. You love to kind of check those off and capitalize on those. But all they are really is a springboard to try to have the next big thing happen. And I think we have a lot of big things ahead.
Ian, thank you so much for taking some time for me.
Appreciate it, Rich. Really enjoyed the conversation.
I did as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ian McCaw, Liberty University Vice President and Athletics Director here on No Holds Barred.